Thank you. Now it's my pleasure to introduce Richard Fitzpatrick, Vice President with Chrysler, the K4 solvent. You have 20 minutes, and I'll give you the notice with 5 minutes to go. Great, thank you.
Hello. So I'm going to be speaking about K4, and I wanted to do a brief introduction of my company first to give you a little bit of a background on who we are. So Chrysler is a little over 100 years old. We're a mid-size German manufacturer of textile chemistry. We also have a robust pharmaceutical division. We have a lot of brain power in our company in R&D, and we're able to synergize and use a lot of resources between those two divisions for product development and testing and those kinds of things. We're ISO certified in a bunch of different fields, and we're very active in patent applications. Solvon K4 was introduced in 2010 to the marketplace. We actually started the research and development on it back in the mid-90s. Specifically and kind of unique with K4, K4 is a patented product, and we have several patents in many countries, including here in Canada. And the patent protects the use of the solvent in textile cleaning, and it also protects the use of detergents in the solvent. And that's a little unique in that when a dry cleaner chooses to use K4, he makes the conscious decision to use Chrysler. And so it's a long-term partnership, and we take that very seriously in our commitment to the client to make sure that they're happy with the product and the performance. But we do ask the dry cleaner to respect the patents, and so that's a little bit different from the other alternatives that are on the market, where you're not obligated to use a specific product. What is Solvon K4? So Solvon K4 is a completely new solvent for the professional textile care industry. It didn't exist as a co-solvent or a cleaning agent. It had been used in household cleaners, in pharmaceutical industry, in cosmetics, but it was completely new to our segment. It is an ultra-pure solvent. We do quality assurances on every single batch of solvent that is produced. We look at its concentration, we measure its flash point. We keep those records going back for many years. In fact, we have records going back to our original batches of solvent that were produced, and we go back and we analyze to make sure there's been no changes in the solvent over time. Dibutoxymethane is the chemical name for it, and it has a lot of nice benefits, non-toxic, biodegradable, and so on. It's a class 3A, like almost all of these alternative solvents are. It has a good kV value. Unique to K4, it has a very low energy requirement for distillation and for drying. It doesn't take a lot of energy to convert it from a liquid to a gas. It allows us to reduce the steam pressure requirements to distill, and allows for fairly quick drying. It has the ability to dissolve both polar and non-polar soil independent of detergent additions, which makes it a very good cleaner. It also has a good water, the ability to solubilize water into it. And it has excellent solvent mileage, on average 3,000 pounds per gallon or better. A little bit about how the solvent is actually made, and one of the things that we've been dealing with is battling rumors and trying to make sure that the information out there is correct. So dibutoxymethane is made by a very simple reaction between 1 mole of butanol and 1 mole of formaldehyde, creates a semi-acetal, and then they add another mole of butanol to create the full acetal dibutoxymethane. It's kind of a simple and clean reaction. Its only byproduct is water. The fact that we use formaldehyde in the reaction does not mean there's formaldehyde in the solvent. In fact, every single batch that we test, we look for formaldehyde. There's no detectable formaldehyde in it. And one of the misconceptions is that this solvent has formaldehyde in it, but that's untrue. The solvent cannot release formaldehyde, and the solvent cannot turn back into formaldehyde within your dry cleaning machine. The cleaning results are excellent. They are on par or better to what we saw with PERC, and we see a broad range of fabrics and trims that can successfully be cleaned in K4. Leather, suede, fur, different types of beading, glues, and painted items. Very simple to use, very simple to build your loads. We basically recommend people just build light and dark instead of the many categories that they would have to build previously. And simplified spotting, you can use free addition of water in the solvent. You can spot with water and not have to worry about drying or leveling, which is a benefit for dry cleaners that are working on a lot of water-soluble soil. For safety and classification, Solvon K4 only carries the GHS classification for just a warning for combustible, and with WMIS it has the same label for combustible. No additional risks for inhalation toxicity with the solvent. There's no workplace exposure limits, and waste classification and best practices for handling are going to be the same as hydrocarbon. So it's a very simple and easy solvent to work with. There's very little additional regulations, and certainly the paperwork is reduced significantly when using it. I talked earlier about how the solvent is made, and I talked about those two raw ingredients that we use. And currently, those two raw ingredients come from the petroleum industry, so they are byproducts of the petroleum refining industry. We knew for a long time that we would be able to get one of those components from corn. And we were waiting for a manufacturing facility to come online and give us that ability. And we were very fortunate that a company from the UK called Green Biologics purchased an ethanol plant in Minnesota and retooled it to make N-butanol out of corn. And so this gave us access to a very clean, stable, price competitive product. And we are now formulating Solvon K4 with 90% of its carbon coming from biomass. And this will make Solvon K4 the first bio-based solvent in the dry cleaning industry. We're going to be eligible for the USDA bio-preferred label. We're in the process of that application right now. And we're not certain if there's a comparable label available in Canada, but if it is, we will certainly research that. But it'll be the same solvent delivered to all of the North American partners. So you would be buying this solvent and knowing that it comes from a renewable and sustainable product. And that's really important to us as a company because that's one of our core beliefs, is to always look at ways to reduce our carbon footprint and without reducing the quality, making things more sustainable. And that goes back to our underlying manufacturing facilities in Germany where we recycle all of our water, we have solar, we have geothermal. We really look at the best ways for long-term, for the benefit of the planet and for the sustainability of our company. That is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. We have time for some, once again, questions, observations, comments, editorial adjustments, probing insights. Yes, finally, a probing insight. Take it away.
I just have a question. I think yesterday you had mentioned that the corn was used was GMO corn.
Yes.
Is that supplied from one of the big companies, or?
Yeah, I would imagine Monsanto is probably the biggest producer for GMO. Understand that the facility only contracts with family-owned farms. So there's about 530 family-owned farms in this area that work there, and it's actually a co-op, so they own a part of the facility. They were all producing corn for ethanol, and this was not consumption-based corn. There's a lot of discussion as it doesn't make sense to take food and turn it into fuel. that's probably not a good discussion for today, but understand that this corn was never meant for food consumption, so it's designed for this.
Thank you.
Other comments, observations, questions?